All right. All right, everybody. This is Dr. Sonia McGowin with Covenant Pediatric Wellness Center, and I am so excited to be here with one of my truly favorite people. This is Lacey Carpenter. She is Jack's mom, and I want everyone to just welcome her with open arms, and whatever questions you have, just put them over in the comment box, and we will get to those as we can. So, Lacey, hi. Thank you
Hi.
so much for being with us today.
Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So tell me a little bit about Jack. How old is he? Like, where do you guys live? Your other kids, your husband? Tell me all about that.
Jack is 15, and we live in Kansas City. And my husband, Rusty, and I, we have two older girls, Dakota and Dallas. Dakota's 29, Dallas is 22. So we've got some age gaps going there between the kids. We have lived in St. Louis. We moved to Iowa, where we got our diagnosis. And now we are in Kansas City for 11 years.
All right. So tell me about. So you mentioned the age gap. So Jack is quite a bit younger than his sisters.
Mhm.
You decided to have
Yeah,
a third baby. You're an
we
experienced
did.
mom. So tell
Yes.
me, when did things start looking off to you with his development? What were your first signs and symptoms that things weren't on track?
Um, in the moment, probably about 12 months. Looking back, I have just a handful of videos. That was kind of before we didn't have phones at our hands to record, so a lot of it going on memory. But I do have a couple videos from around 8 months where I can tell now, like he was stemming pretty hard, loss of sleep, things like that. But 12 months is when I kind of noticed like he had began his language development. He was recognizing us. He was saying basic words, putting some words together, just two or three. And then it kind of started to slide out a little bit, and he was still talking, but not as much. And so at his 12-month appointment, I told the doctor, I said, I just think things are a little shifty a little bit, like they're not the same. And didn't really bring a whole lot of attention to it. The doctor didn't seem very concerned. So between 12 months and 15 months, we really had a chunk of regression, and definitely lost more language. The words that were solid words, he was not saying anymore. A little withdrawn, kind of starting to live in his own little bubble. And so at 15 months, took him in for his regular scheduled appointment. And the doctor was saying to me, well, he's got two older siblings. They're probably doing a lot of talking for him. She coined it as little prince syndrome, and that he didn't need to say as much. And we talked about the things like playtime and reading time. And she said, well, you're probably reading to him at the wrong times of the day. So I left a little confused because I thought developmentally all the milestones were being met. And then at 12 months, they start slipping. By 15 months, they're really slipping. And his sleep was not good. He was up a lot. And at 18 months, we lost him. And he became a shell. There's really no other way to describe it. Like his personality was gone, his language was gone. He was not responding at all. We could say his name over and over. And so I thought, well, maybe he's gone deaf. Like I thought maybe he had lost his hearing. There was no other explanation for it. Zero interest in anything he ever was interested in. And so he would sit. I have a vivid memory of him sitting in the living room just picking at the carpet fibers. And I thought, gosh, like he's not playing with toys. He's not singing. He's not watching shows. Like, so we went back in, and at 18 months, I just remember the doctor snapping her fingers in front of the face, and he was blank. And so she said, well, we'll send you for a referral. It's a pediatric referral at the big university in the state. And she said, well, they'll just do a whole workup. That's all she said. that I heard nothing else. And so I thought, well, what's a workup and what are we working up? Like, okay. And I'm just in the mode of you do what your doctor tells you to, and you don't question and you just follow the steps. And so between 18 and 21 months, we had to wait 3 months for that appointment. And at 20, about a week or two before the appointment, I got a card in the mail, an appointment reminder card, and it said autism assessment. And my heart broke. My heart sunk for several reasons. One, I didn't really know what autism was. I was kind of like, why are we doing this? And then on the other hand, it's like, you've heard a few stories here and there, but it wasn't widely talked about. But I knew some challenges about it, but I was very, very naive to what we were walking into. So we went to the appointment and we saw like the audiology department, the OT department, the physical education, the physical therapy department. They did a behavioral assessment. Like it was a whole day. And they came back with pervasive developmental delay, PDD was our first. And at the end of that day, we sat in a room with like a caseworker and somebody else. I don't remember who it was. And they couldn't give me information. I mean, all of the questions we had, they could not answer our questions. And they told me to go online and go to Google and start searching for answers. And they did refer me to a state organization that had local people to come and help. And so that's when we started. I had to hit the pavement. I mean, I came home and I did not know what to do. I didn't know what this was. And I thought, well, I guess we need to start helping them regain language, So from there, we had the local organization come in, and we did speech therapy with him primarily, and some OT stuff, but very basic, he's young. He's not even 2, when this all went going on. So, yeah.
So what do you think? Like, normal kids don't just regress. They don't arrest and regress in their development.
Yeah.
There has to be something.
Yeah.
What do you think Jack's something was?
He hit his tipping point with his toxicities. When I took him to every appointment, I did not know what was happening at that appointment. I didn't know what we were there for, to be honest. You come back. They give you a card to come back. And I didn't know when we walked in, would he get a vaccine that day or not? Like they didn't tell you, like that, at least not then, not with, you just go.
Yeah.
And I know I can look back at his vaccine record, and every single time I took him in, there was a little piece of him that changed very subtly at first. It's just a subtle change, but then the assault starts hitting hard, and I can look back and I know it was every time he was vaccinated, it changed him. It changed him, probably more so his DTaP more than anything, but a combination of all of them, really. I wish I would have just informed myself more. And in the process of all of his appointments, we had moved from one state to another. And I remember thinking I didn't have a super urgency of like finding a pediatrician and getting on board. And so part of me wishes, looking back, maybe I should have just held on to that a little bit and delayed a little bit and figured out where I need to take him and which was the right office. I mean, a newly met acquaintance just said, here, this is where we go. And that's just what I did, So.
Yeah. So what do you say? Because this is controversial, right?
Yeah.
There are people who will die on this hill that it absolutely happens this way, or no, it doesn't. And so when you hear people say it's not medical, that autism is not medical, it's purely genetic, you're born with it, it can't be the vaccines. What do you say?
I say it absolutely can. be vaccines. It can be genetic. I don't think our genetics play a part. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, genetics with Jackson played a tipping point, because you have generational toxicities that are passed down. And that's one thing that's not really thought about or even talked about, but what I had injected in me as a kid and or an adult, what my mom, what my grandma, like, my dad, like, it all kind of goes down and builds your DNA and what makes up your genetic makeup. Um, so, but there's a hard core foundation of families like ours that without a doubt can tell you my kid was born perfectly typical, no problems, no issues, developing perfectly on track, hitting milestones, and then it changed. Overnight, it changed. And then when you go in for your next set, it changes more violently, really. I mean, a loss. I mean, a complete loss of a child that's still living in front of you, but you lost that child.
Yeah.
So it is controversial. It absolutely is controversial. And, I held it, I held it close to my heart for a long time because I was still trying to figure it out. And even in the midst of seeing him regress, I even thought to myself, like, I wonder if this could be that. But I thought, I don't have time to figure that part of it out. I need to go get him help. So we need to start on the therapy side of it to get going again. But in our case, once Jackson was vaccine injured, he never stepped foot in the pediatrician's office again. Never. To this day, he doesn't have a pediatrician. His sickness really isn't present. Like, he doesn't get ill very often. He's been to urgent care one time, and we don't need a doctor. Not that you don't ever need a doctor, but in our case, we handle a lot of things at home, and now handling things biomedically is helping him get better in his system and his immune system function and everything. So, vaccine injury is real. It is absolutely real. And when it happens in front of your eyes, there's no dispute. There's no dispute at all.
Absolutely. So, what kinds of behaviors have you guys dealt with over the years?
He's always been obsessive, compulsive about certain things. When he was young, he found straw wrappers. This is before he was really up and going. So, like, anything he could grab at a table, but dangly things, he would pick and dangle the dangly things. Tippy toe walking came in, and we thought it was cute, actually. But now looking back, that's not cute. But he started tippy toe walking. Sleep disruption. Once you kind of get out of that infant stage, you think, wow, we can get some of our sleep back, and we still struggle really hardcore with sleep disturbances. Insomnia like patterns where he can't shut his engine off. So we are up pretty late, every night. And the good thing about Jack is he does like to sleep in, but that's a balance. You can't sleep in 2 weeks and you don't go back to sleep. When he was younger, we couldn't have eggs in the house. He would drop eggs all over. Anything like powdery flour, all over. Flour goes over. Pushing out the window screens from bedroom windows, living room windows, trying to elope out of the house. So we've had to put locks on the windows, deadbolts, and the flip latch at top so he can't leave, locks on the back gate because he'll leave the backyard, child locks on the car because he'll open the car door. So it's an OCD-ness that I think he's trapped in a lot. He has to walk certain ways, or if he hits something, like, he's got to tap it over and over. So we've now ventured into a lot of OCD, echolalia, a lot of vocal repetitiveness over and over, stemming, a lot of stemming, a lot of spinning.
Mhm.
That's where we are today. The stemming comes and goes in some pretty gigantic waves, facial pressing, but he's loud. He's loud.
Mhm.
he's
Mhm.
I can't say he's nonverbal because he does have words. He can't string a conversation together. Um, he communicates, but he's not communicative, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So it's figuring out how he ticks and working with it, really go, yeah.
Tell us more about the water situation and kind of
Mm,
how that has impacted your house.
water. Okay,
Water.
water. Forgot about that one. Water.
Mhm.
So it started years and years ago. He would take cups or and fill them with liquid, and he would line them up on the edge of the countertop where like the cup would literally be hanging like off. You'd think it's gonna fall, but he's got this weird sense of intuition that's really crazy. But lining up water, sucking water, spitting water, or liquids, whatever liquid if there's a cup and he wants it, water up the nose, dripping it out of the nose. That was a big thing for a long time. Bathtubs. He's now old enough where he showers. We don't give him a bath anymore. Bathtub water was hard. And that ended up in a bathroom flood a couple years ago. Yeah,
Mm.
about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a bathroom
Wow.
flood. And that turned into a whole nother situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys couldn't get out and about very much with
Mm-mm,
him.
mm-mm.
You said you were
No.
homebound for a decade.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, we were. When he was little, I left him once, but that was before he was about a year old, and I took a trip by myself. So I'd spent a whole entire year with him before I took a break. And when he was about 8-ish, my husband and I, we said we need to take a break. But we didn't go anywhere. I mean, we couldn't go to restaurants. And there's some restaurants still that bother him a little bit. A lot of, I think it's the smells of the food and things, but we were homebound. We had to give up a lot of things that maybe he could handle. It's circumstantial. Like when he was younger and I could put him in a stroller or I could strap him into a cart, like we could go to the
Mhm.
grocery store.
Mhm.
But when you get to that point where he's too big to go into the cart or too big to go in the stroller, um, he can't go in because he has his impulses and his self-control were non-existent. And so like I can't be waiting in line at a checkout while he's destroying,
Yeah.
the candy or whatever he sees there, or having a meltdown, literally putting himself on the floor and not moving. So it became easier for years to just wait in the car. I'll go run in.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
errands had to go really fast, so that way he could sit in the car with somebody while I ran in and got a few things and came out. So yeah, we were homebound for a long time, and things that we used to be able to do, I feel like now we can't. So like, there was a great children's program for him at our church, and when he was little, I could go in with them if they needed me to, or we wait outside and listen to service. But now he's at a point where they don't know how to address children who or young adults who are nonverbal, who need somebody hands on. I can't
Mhm.
drop him off. I can't drop him off in a kids program or a youth program or something like that because they would not have a clue of what to do or how to help him. So,
So now he's 15,
mhm,
which brings the dreaded puberty situation.
mhm, mhm.
How has puberty changed this whole presentation?
Well, at first, you just kind of roll with the punches and you don't really, we're always battling something. So, like, I just think, oh, it's something new that's popped up and it is what it is. But looking back, puberty for us, I would say, began around 11. And um, the hyperactivity, fight or flight, fight or flight. If we try to even walk him in somewhere that he's unfamiliar with, it was like the brakes come on. Um, fight or flight for sure. His anxiety has lessened, but we spent years, even pre-puberty, where he had to know where I was in the house. Like he couldn't relax in our own home. If I was in the laundry room and I had moved over to, the kitchen, like he needed to know and come find me. We had issues with his bowels. Like we really went back and forth between a lot of constipation, some diarrhea, that type of thing. Toileting is an issue still. Bad breath came in before any body odor. Then still there's some signs of bad breath. Random patches of like a red spot on his back, or he had the bumps on his arms, face. He would get real bright red and bump out, and still does. And I think part of it is just a lack of being able to detox. Some just regular hormones with acne, which she doesn't really have, but I think that's stuff coming out of the skin. So we kind of dove into, without even really realizing what I was doing, like the tests that we would do. When we would come back, we would notice like, oh, he's got low cholesterol. You wouldn't really think that's significant, but it is. And when you need those healthy fats to regulate your cholesterol, and Jack being a super picky eater, I mean, picky is saying it very lightly. It's hard to get the right nutrition in him. It's hard to get the right fats in him to balance his cholesterol. High cortisol. So he's stressed. His adrenals were stressed. Low DHEA. So that's cognitive function there. So we spent several years of kind of like, you got to say something over and over, and like, are his wheels spinning? Is he tuning you out? Like trying to read everything that's going on in his mind, mixed with all these other hormonal imbalances,
Mm-hmm.
Low melatonin, low stomach acid. So he's not, even the food that he is able to take in, it's hard to digest. And you would think if you're burping and you have acid reflux, like, oh, you have too much acid. Well, low stomach acid.
Yep.
Low growth hormone. So we struggled with his mitochondria making energy. We struggled with getting the nutrition in, getting the toxins out. His body was not able to like go through that proper cycle. And then his endocrine system took a huge hit. Doing energy testing, like with the bioscan and then with the remedy scan, they always go hand in hand. They always match up perfectly. That he really was struggling with his endocrine system, prostate support, things like that. So the endocrine system, oh man, that's a tough one, because like we would test it and it would be really low. We would do some interventions and then it would kind of come back up. It'd still be in the yellow, and then it would plummet back off. So starting in about 2021, his endocrine system showed that it was really taking a hit. So you're talking about, he's got inflammation. His lymph system is going slow. His liver always needs to be supported, in his kidneys, but his liver primarily. His immune system, his nervous system, the methylation cycle. Like looking back, it was like, wow, we had way more issues in puberty than I think I realized. But when you're testing for other things and you're like, oh, I need to add this in because it would help with this, it kind of supports the hormones as you go along. Yeah. So I think we're coming out of the cusp of the full-blown puberty range. I was nervous in puberty because there are kids who are even recovered. They have lost their autism diagnosis and they regress going through puberty. And I was petrified of whatever gains and, healing had happened in his body was going to be taken away because of an imbalance of hormones. So we did have regression in there in ways that probably came from different issues that we went through, different viruses we had to fight off and things like that. But coming out of the other end, I feel like we're starting to kind of jumpstart again, getting some language, lost some language, lost articulation, really. I mean, he, again, not conversational, but he could say clear words.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it became very slurred, very sluggish. Didn't want to put the energy into it, you know? So now I think it's that we're getting better, but I think you're just lazy a little bit. I think you need to work hard because I know you can say it. You know, he's shown us now.
Yeah.
I think he probably gets tired of asking for the same thing over and over, but he needs help, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we
Wow.
have introduced some typing, that type of thing, but I think he's ready for that. I don't think he would have been ready for that going through the big hormonal
Right.
changes this past, 3-4 years.
So you've done a lot of testing.
Yes.
Is it mainstream testing that you're doing? Is your pediatrician that you don't have helping you with that? Like
No.
what road are you on right now? How did you find me? Like how has all of this come about?
I found you through like a chain of events because when in my gut I knew like I needed to find somebody years ago,
Yeah.
and I started going online, and I stumbled on some Facebook groups and things, and I was lost. I mean, they were talking a whole nother language. I did not understand their language, didn't understand the acronyms, didn't understand nothing. And I thought, but they're on to something, like I feel like I'm missing out on something. I need to figure this out. And so by chance, an acquaintance that I had not even known that long had kids that were diagnosed, and they were seeing a local practitioner and really, really had improved their autism symptoms to the point of losing a lot of them. Would say that they had been fully recovered. And I started there. And then I thought, okay, like I'm good with this. He's guiding me through testing, and muscle testing was a big new one for me. Firm believer in muscle testing. That is amazing to test your body. Your body will tell you what it's needing. Just trust your body. And then I thought, okay, we're kind of on a one road path, so we need to expand this road. And in one of the Facebook groups, somebody had said your name, and that you were like in my state. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm like, okay, you're only like, what? I don't know, 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away,
Mhm.
something like that. And um, a girl had said, yeah, she's our practitioner. And so I messaged her on the side, and I was like, tell me about Dr. Sonia. Because before you like jump full in,
Yeah.
and yeah, and she's still this day a dear friend of mine, and she basically confirmed like this is a good path to go down. So that's how I stumbled onto you, and I love your motto, the why matters. That's kind of like a hook, line, and sinker, because you might not understand my story, but there's no doubt. You might think, oh, that sounds a little weird, but there's no doubt. And I like the freedom of finding practitioners who believe you and that help you, and can say, let's help figure this out and brainstorm together, because I know I've probably come to you with some pretty wacky ideas. I want to try this. Can we try this? And you make a way, and sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. Like it might not be the right tool or use of biomedical intervention that we need, but I love that there's freedom to be heard. And that's what parents are looking for. I know for a fact, because like you said, this is all controversial. And if you say this stuff and someone gives you the side eye, you're like, well, okay, maybe that's not the right office for me, or that's not the right practitioner for me.
Yeah.
So that's how I found you.
So what kinds of things have we found in terms of infections, pathogens,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and a lot of stuff, mitochondrial dysfunction,
Yep.
hormones,
Yep.
kidney, liver, stuff like that.
Yep.
What else have we been able to find?
Well, the biggest, I guess, what kind of steamrolled this was an exposure to strep. And when I think of strep, I think of strep throat. That's all I've ever thought of, strep throat. And that's when I found out that strep goes deep. It goes deep. And you're not like a carrier of being contagious. It's an attack. It's a virus that's so deep seated in you that it becomes an attack on your own system in all different ways. So we started, I think strep was one of the first things we uncovered, if I remember correctly. But we've battled mycotoxins. Did the mycotox test and found active mycotoxins and active mold in his system. We have done urinalysis to find other bacterias and nasal swabs and throat swabs and the oats test. We did the oats test. All peel back a layer of some sort, but they all mesh together. So the remedy testing was like my first experience really doing some sort of like an energy testing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great. They all overlap because what one test may not discover, another test does discover. And sometimes one test may say it's not that big of a problem, but you get another test and it says it is that big of a problem. The one thing that we don't do is blood draws. And so I feel like there's a piece that misses out because we don't do blood draws. But there's a ton of information that we have gotten just doing a stool sample, hair sample, mouth swab, whatever. A ton of information that we can get. We did do the blood spot twice.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as far as we can go on that. Yeah.
And so what kind of changes have you seen in him since we've addressed some of these core issues?
Well, I will say if we start with the strep virus, because that's probably been our biggest beast.
Yeah.
We did uncover EBV, Epstein-Barr as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mycoplasmas were discovered. Attacking strep, because that really wreaked havoc, not only on him, but on my family and this house, because some of the behaviors that we got out of that were in no way fun to deal with. And when you have a loss of bladder control, that's a problem. And so it was a constant cleaning, a constant, scrubbing, changing rugs, whatever. But attacking that. And then that led us into, maybe because we've been dealing with this for so long, like this could be a MARCoNS issue. I'd never heard about MARCoNS before. I'm not an expert in MARCoNS by any stretch. But MARCoNS live in your sinus cavity. And believe it or not, there's probably a good chunk of the population, upwards of 80%, that have MARCoNS. So like if you have a sinus infection, a chronic sinus infection, sinusitis, any autoimmune condition, Lyme, lupus, fibro, SIRS, the chronic inflammatory response, if you have mold exposure, if you have biotoxin exposure, if you are exposed to VOCs, which is everyone's exposed to VOCs. It's in our carpet, it's in our paint, it's in our beauty products, it's in our household products. Everyone is exposed, and that itself isn't, because you're breathing this stuff in, like it's sitting up here. And so if you have like a chronic sinus infection or respiratory infection, and so knowing that Jack was hit hard with strep, and other things, we did the MARCoNS test in your office. We drove down, made a sweet trip to your office. It came back negative, which was wild that it came back negative. But you can get a false negative. Mm-hmm. So in order to MARCoNS is also really resistant to antibiotics. So you're not going to be able to take a normal amoxicillin, penicillin to attack this at all. It's not going to work. An oral antibiotic is not going to work. And I also didn't want to give Jack an oral antibiotic. He had only been on antibiotics once in his life when he had tubes placed in his ears when he was young. So I've been kind of, I know antibiotics have their place. I just never felt like we needed to use them, and I didn't want to use them. So I came across a nasal antibiotic spray. It's called the Beg spray, Beg Eye, actually. It's got Batraban, it's got gentamicin in it, and it also has EDTA, which is your biofilm buster. And the problem with MARCoNS is it is so protected by biofilm, like layers of biofilm. You're just not going to plow through it. Getting that EDTA really helps knock that biofilm out. So I was hopeful with the Beg Eye spray. It is prescription, it is compounded, so it's nice that you can custom compound it. But it really hits right at the infection site. Now, because I thought Jack strep was more deep-seated and really had pushed into other areas, the thing that opened my eyes about it even being up in this area was we had done a bioscan. And the bioscan detected that he had this infection up in his sinuses. And so my bioscan practitioner said, you need to figure something out up here. And her suggestion was Xlear, which is an over-the-counter. You can get it at Walgreens or whatever. It does break biofilm, but it's just not potent. Like if you maybe got something smaller going on. And then when the Beg spray came in, it just changed things. 9 days in, we did a 30-day round of it, and on day 9, I was wowed. Like this stuff works. Like so many things that we had struggled with for a year and a half had just been, the brakes went on. So it's amazing that even though he came up negative for MARCoNS, he might have had a false negative.
But, and he had other things that showed on that culture, some other bacteria and fungus that showed too. So that makes sense.
He had a nasty bacteria show up. And so he had gotten really sick this past November, which was pretty odd because he doesn't get sick hardly ever, which is not really a good sign, like his immune function isn't proper. And he got so ill for like 2 weeks, and he still was like the residual of that lasted weeks, but I mean a solid week he was down, and he wasn't eating, running high fever, like all these things. And when we started that Beg spray and he came out on the other side of that, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. And I thought, we've been waiting over almost 2 years. It was like, I'm like, we have been doing this for so long, and this little nasal spray knocked it out. But the caveat to that, and just like with everything biomedical, you can try something and it not work. And you go on to something else, and you have to circle back to it, and then it works. So maybe we probably hit it at just the right time because it had been found to be up there. If it were not seated up there at that time and we would have tried it, it might not have worked. But man, we finally got one. Like I feel like we finally had a big win coming out of that. And so the Beg Eye spray was the heavy hitter. I always incorporate herbals. I'm always incorporating homeopathic, tinctures. There's always other things going on. Red light therapy to help bring down inflammation. Ion cleanse. We do the foot bath. That's a good one for us. But doing all these things, giving all the supplements. I mean, we would do a Benadryl ibuprofen combination to help bring him down, throughout all this time. We were doing herbals for antivirals for tick-borne because, Lyme's crept up on him before, which doesn't have to be by a tick bite, So Lyme has come in there. And the one thing that really, I think it all synergistically just worked together, and I feel like we finally got a hold on it. So this last bioscan we did, he does still show strep, but it's coming up as an old infection. So
Okay.
we crossed a big bridge. We on that
Jamie, one of our viewers, is asking what you did specifically for strep to address it.
one. Ooh, lots of things. Okay. So a lot of antivirals, herbal antivirals. I can give names. I'm not going to give doses. Just that's all, personal. But
Mm-hmm.
Cryptolepis
Mm-hmm.
is always in my wheelhouse. Cryptolepis, even when we're really not sick, I feel like I go through waves with it because
Mm-hmm.
you get the springtime icks, kids go back to school icks, and
Mm-hmm.
winter icks. So it's good to rotate that. Um, Vitamin D3K2 is always in the wheelhouse. Um, Rhodiola was good for us. It's an antiviral, help calm him because he's high strung.
Mm-hmm.
So we set the fire to a lot of things on him. So calming supports is good for him. Olive leaf throat spray is an antiviral. That's a good one because even if a kid says they have a sore throat, if they can take it via spray, that's great. If not, throw it in some water and suck it
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Cat's claw, antiviral, anti-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese skullcap for respiratory and to help relax everything. Because he did have a crazy respiratory problem along with the strep and everything. Glutathione, that's a good one because it helps. It's a good antioxidant.
Mm-hmm.
Glutathione is always a good one in my book because we always can use some little help clearing things out. Um, we did high dose vitamin A. I forgot about that. We did high dose vitamin A, which was probably one of the first protocols, I guess, we used to attack it outside of doing your herbals and homeopathic stuff. High dose vitamin A, I think worked pretty well. And we had ways of it calming down and then it would kind of, jump back up. Colloidal silver,
Mm-hmm.
nebulizing colloidal silver, nebulizing cryptolepis,
Mm-hmm.
taking colloidal silver as a spray. I have it somewhere. There's a detox kit. I wrote it down. Let me find it. There's a detox, the Ultimate Body Detox Kit by Results RNA has a glutathione spray, a colloidal silver spray.
Mm-hmm.
I like to have that on hand just to spray when needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've learned so much. Like, you are one of the top tier moms, in my opinion, in terms of, you need an antibacterial herb, here it is. If you need an antiviral herb, here it is. Like, you just know innately how that chemistry works, and you're
Mhm.
just so good at that.
And what's crazy is I don't feel that way. I I don't because there are so many moms out there that are hitting the pavement and dads. I mean,
Mhm.
give it the props to the dads. I mean, there are parents out there hitting the pavement trying to go downstream root cause
Yeah.
and turning the stones over because you're not getting the answers from your mainstream pediatrician. Um, even some, the family doctor, like you're
Mhm.
not going to get those. So parents are put into a spot of having to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's sink or swim. It really it's that's exactly what it is. And I feel like I know our case pretty well. There's still times I like prepping for today. It's like I had to go back and look because we've done so many things.
Mhm.
I can't remember. Like I had to go back and remind myself, like, oh, this did work, or I've totally forgot about that, or we're going to revisit that. Now that I'm
Mm.
looking at it again, we should do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, props to all the parents out there that just
Oh,
don't take the
seriously.
word no.
So what's your take on the whole, like, "Oh, I'm neurodivergent, and
Mhm,
I have a touch of the tism," or I just have a new autism diagnosis."
mhm,
Like, what's your take on that sort of now being glorified?
mhm. Well, I see it as it pokes at me. It hurts me. Um, because autism is serious. I mean, this is something that this is impacting lives of people and their family members. I mean, it impacts more than that one person. The hardcore truth about autism is it is a rough, hard, long road. And when you see people pop up, it's like everyone needs to have some sort of identity, or they need to have something where they can slap themselves with to say, this is who I am. And I see a lot of that now where these people are saying that they have autism, but they're functioning. And I don't discredit that there are high functioning autism people or autistic people. There's high functioning people of all sorts of under that umbrella of autism, but it is a slap in the face when people are using it um, either as a crutch or they're using it as an excuse or something like that, because we are we are the face of autism. You might not see us because we're not out in public a lot, you know? I mean, when the parents are fighting and they are going through a living nightmare in their own home and you can't leave your home, you're not seeing autism. Autism is meltdowns, neurological breakdown that cannot be controlled. You can't discipline it. You can't fight against it. So, autism, I feel, has been lumped into this larger category of people that they are the face of autism and that they are highly, highly um, functioning. Highly functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what that gives a mixed signal to society, that they latch on to that thought and they latch on to that picture. And when you see me taking my kid into the grocery store and I'm locked arms with him because he will run, or his hands have to be on, I'm holding his hands on the cart, or we're having a problem over something in the aisle, they're like, oh, like, yeah, I get a lot of looks. I get a lot of stares.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I used to get comments, um, but I feel like the majority of people who are living, breathing autism aren't, they don't have a voice. They don't have a voice. And the parents are the ones speaking up for those people. And we're silenced and we're hushed because what
Yes.
we have to say is controversial.
Mm-hmm.
What we have to say ruffles feathers. What
Yes.
we have to say is not mainstream, and it ruffles feathers in the community. It ruffles feathers at schools. It ruffles feathers in the families. It ruffles feathers with neighbors, um, because what we are saying is our truth. We're
Yeah.
saying the road that we walked. And so I kept autism, my beliefs and my opinions, my truth about what I saw my own kid go through. I held that close to my heart for a long time. A handful of people knew as I was discovering too, which is really crazy because as your eyes are opening, it's like, oh my gosh, you just want to scream it. And then you find out real quickly that you can't say it, because if you say it, yeah, you lose people. You lose
Mm-hmm.
people. Um, but I don't shy away. If somebody asks me, I don't shy away from it. I just don't want the fight about it.
Yeah.
I have a fight inside my home
Yeah.
that I have to deal with day in, day out. I'm fighting for Jack's health. I'm fighting that the Lord will bless us with a healing. I'm fighting that there will be a longevity of peace in this house, joy in this house. I got to say, we are fun in this house, because if I don't laugh, if I don't have a sense of humor, if I don't have some sarcasm, it will eat you alive.
Yeah.
You will fall into a black hole that you've never known existed. And that's the importance of finding people that you can surround yourself with. I mean, these autism moms and dads are, I have a few really tight people, one in particular that we chat every day. It's like you just have to have that sounding board of somebody who
Who
understands.
gets it?
You have to surround yourself by that because the world does not understand. The world does not understand. And it's fine. It's nice to have people who are rooting for you. You're rooting for them. You can brainstorm with them. They can brainstorm with you. You can say, this is where we're at. I can text my friend at 1:30 in the morning and sometimes she's awake, like
Yeah.
I'm still awake, so you have to put yourself around people who are supportive because the world, I think, views autism as manageable, not as big of a problem as it is. Quirky.
Quirky.
Yeah.
I'm just a little different.
And that may be for some people.
Yeah. But it's not your reality.
Yeah.
This is not severe autism that you
It's not
live
my
with.
reality.
So if you had the chance to go back in time to that first doctor who said, "Oh, you're reading to him at the wrong times," or, nonsense like that. If you could go back and give that doctor a lesson, like, "Here's how you should have handled our case," what would you say to her for wasting all that time and then putting you into an evaluation that you didn't even understand? Like, you had to see the word autism on an appointment reminder, not out of her mouth. Like, what would you say?
Patient care would be something I'd like to talk to her about because we came in with a big problem and we were brushed aside. And knowing that we had a problem at 12 months, we weren't listened to, for sure. We weren't listened to at 15 months. And at 18 months, we'll just pass you on, And I get it. They're going to do their basic assessments or they're going to do their basic, overview of the kid. But, I wish she would have just been a little more receptive to what we were saying and how just utter nonsense it was to tell a parent you're reading to them at the wrong time or other people are speaking for him. Why if you're speaking, why would you stop?
Right.
Why would you stop?
Yeah.
And I get angry when I think about it because I never went back to that office. I mean, it was like, oh, we don't need an appointment with you anymore because we're doing this over here now, and I wonder how many patients like us came through that office and or all of the other offices across the country, I would like to think that the autism knowledge about autism has gotten better in the mainstream white coat world, if I can say that. Hopefully, I don't know. I know that there's the levels now. When we were diagnosed before there were levels, but it's just there's no parental support. There was no follow-up. There was no aftercare. There was no let's sit down and talk about this. I mean, it was like we had the appointment, we were gone. So I just wish I could have just said, I really hope other parents had a better experience because we didn't.
So if you were going to sit in a room with newly diagnosed parents, what advice would you give them now that you're 15 minutes in?
Well, do they want to hear my advice?
They're eager for your advice.
They're eager to hear my advice. First of all, trust your gut. Because I had it in my gut and I kind of pushed it down because I thought we can't tackle the vaccine topic right now. We got to go over here. But also today, there's so much information at your fingertips that we didn't have 15 years ago that, dude, put boots on the ground. I mean, research for yourself. If if you're told something and it sounds iffy, and not saying it might be wrong, be open-minded, listen to it, because autism is not just neurological. That's its first line of attack. I mean, it attacks the brain, but the trickle down effect that it has from all these other things that you think they're separate, it's all one big ball.
Mhm.
So you might be thinking, oh, I'm only struggling with ear infections right now because my kid's little, or I might be struggling with, whatever. Um, Trust your gut. I mean, and really think outside the box, because I think if I would have listened to myself, I could have started this way earlier, because we started when Jackson was at the end of age 7.
Yeah.
And I did have one nurse practitioner come to me. We met outside of, I'd started an autism nonprofit. And I met her through that. And she was a mom that had a kiddo with autism, and she was a nurse practitioner. But she also worked for a biomed doctor. And I didn't know what any of this was. And she had emailed me saying we could do these tests. And all I thought was, I'm not putting any more needles in my kid. And I wish I would have been a little more open. And she
Mhm.
said, I know Jack's not sleeping good. Can I just bring you some melatonin? And I was like, what is melatonin? you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I really wish I would have given myself some grace to just take a breather,
Mhm, mhm,
um, and really, really listen to that intuition, because we're given intuition for a reason.
mhm,
Um, and if you feel like, if you're on a vaccine schedule and you feel like you should stop, even pause, then take a pause.
mhm,
Take a pause. If you feel like there's something in your environment that's playing a role, food is a big problem. I can attest that Jackson's diet is in the tank. He eats a lot of chicken nuggets, and I think hormonally that impacted his puberty, of why his estrogen was off the charts, because he ingested a lot of hormonal
mhm.
chickens,
Yeah,
that were pumped up with junk.
right.
So there's things that you can do, like fresh off the gate, that, and now we have at our fingertips, we do have practitioners that are on our side.
Mhm,
Um, Insurance is not going to cover you. Insurance isn't going to pay for it, and that's daunting at times, because you got to figure out, how can I do this? How can I do this test? Or start small.
mhm,
Start small, because the information never goes away. So just start small and get a test, and what comes back on this test. And there's sometimes less is more. I've learned that. Sometimes
mhm.
less is more.
Yeah,
I've been on protocols where we're dosing 20 plus things,
yeah.
and it gets hard to keep up, and it gets hard for Jack to take it. And sometimes less is more. And little things that you implement, little things can make big differences.
Mhm. Well, I think you're amazing. I think Rusty is amazing. Your girls, Jack, you guys are just my favorites, and I'm always so happy to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
part of your circle.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thank you
It's
for
hard.
being brave enough to talk about your family story
Yeah.
and to hopefully, reach the ears of a parent who needs to
Mhm.
hear it
Yeah.
because it's important.
And they can, I mean, if somebody wants to contact me, they can message you. I don't know if
Mhm.
you can find me or get a hold of me through Facebook. I think I have that pretty locked down, but if they contact your office, I'm more than happy to share. Because you got to have people in your Rolodex,
Yep.
that you can count on and kind of brainstorm with. Um, but autism is a hard word.
Yeah.
Today, it's a hard word for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't say autism for a long time. I couldn't get the word out. I just couldn't. It would literally, like, my vocal cord got shut off. It's hard. It really is. But when you have people in your corner, you have practitioners that understand you. It makes life easier, for sure.
Well, you and Rusty are phenomenal parents, and Jack is progressing every day, and
Yep.
I just hope that your words really sort of shine a light on the
Mm,
life of severe autism, but also that autism is medical and kids can get better.
yeah.
Kids can recover, they can improve, they can make progress, and
And
people need to hear that,
they can,
especially when they're newly diagnosed.
and also latching on to people who have a story where their kid has been recovered gives you the greatest hope.
Yeah.
It gives you the greatest hope because when we started this journey, I made a notebook, and on the front of the book, I had put Jackson's recovery, and it was an airplane that was kind of
Yeah.
zipping all the way around. It was this airplane kind of going all over. But there's highs, there's lows, there's setbacks for sure. But finding somebody's story that they can say without a doubt, you can come out of this
Yeah.
is so hopeful. Is so hopeful. And things that you would never think you would try, you do. Things that are, I would consider underground. We do a lot of things underground um, that I don't speak about because they are far fetched. But when you want to fight for your kid because you want your kid to be able to thrive and survive in this world and not have the burden of a generational burden.
Yeah.
Like my kids, I think about my older kids, this doesn't just impact me and my husband, this impacts my other children.
Yeah.
And being able to set up what we can do for him to have a successful future. And that's what I'm charged with. I mean, as his mom, I have been charged with providing for him the best care possible. And my husband and I together are on the same page. And it's hard. I will say, if you have a spouse and they're not on the same page, that is a challenge. But still doable. It's still doable. So, yeah, but if somebody needs extra cheering squad, I can be part of a squad.
Well, you're amazing. And thanks again for being willing to tell your story and helping other parents. Um, and so until I get to see you next time, thanks
Yeah,
so much.
sounds good.
All
Thank you.
right.
Bye.
Bye.